What is up, YouTube, and welcome to episode 91 of the Chaos Daily. Let's get into it. So, I've got a slightly long episode to get through today. I have been working my butt off. So is the printer. Like, we've done one. I woke up, it was one done. I did another one, and I just finished another one. So that's 4 prints in the last 20 hours. So yeah, we've been busy. Both the wings are pretty much complete. We're just missing the 2 root sections. You see the scribbles on these. This one, and this one will need to be reprinted. We'll get a close-up just now, and I will show you why I need to reprint these. This one in particular, it's got some really cool stuff going on, and I had to work out some pretty nifty tricks to get around the issues that I was facing. But we have a solution now. It is wild. It is kind of counterintuitive to everything you would think. I've had to do something pretty drastic, but it's working. It's working really well. The print that I just pulled out came out beautifully. One of the root sections. So this one is the left-hand side. And it goes in here like so. Okay, I will have to remount the aileron hinge. It's a bit tight, so that's all right. All the others, even this one, turned out beautifully. But there we have, you can see what a complete wing would look like, despite the fact that I will need to reprint this one. This one, there were some slight warping issues. I've moved away from using a raft on the base of the prints. That seemed to work really well at first. That's how I got this one really nice. But the issue is the individual, the base of every support is discrete. It's not really connected to anything until a little bit further up in the print, where you'd have a support that branches over to one of its neighbors. Now, depending on how it branches over to its neighbor, determines whether or not, if that support came loose at any point before it reaches the point where it branches. So if it comes loose, then it sticks on the bottom of in the vat. And then at a later point, depending on where the branch is that gets printed underneath it, will then pull it up, and then it will continue printing the cylinder for the support if it has enough support left to go. And because I'm printing these so close to the build plate, there's very little actual length in the support, so there's very little time for them to catch each other if one of them falls. So what I've done is I've come up with a very clever system where I've created basically a grid of very thin 1mm lines that are only the same thickness as the bases for the supports. What that helps in doing is creating like a net that basically covers the whole build plate. So if any one of the supports in the particular areas where I've been having trouble, it's always the same places on the build plate. If one of those areas, the support would normally fall off because there's nothing else to keep it up with the build plate, now that we've got this mesh, they can't fall off, so everything stays on the build plate. A couple of other things I did to try and improve these areas where, because the rest of the build plate's fine, everything sticks to it really nicely, but it's just these couple of areas. No matter what I would do, I've increased the bottom layer exposure times to 70 seconds, and now it's getting really hard to get the supports in the other areas off. They are literally sticking to the build plate, and I've even gone as far as to get some 1500 grit sandpaper and lightly scuff my build plate to improve bed adhesion. And now it's really hard to get the supports off everywhere else, except for those areas where it's now sticking normally. So I can't figure it out. I don't know what it is that's causing that issue in those areas of the build plate. Maybe the LEDs in the array underneath are dimmer in those spots, so there's not as much UV light coming up to that area of the build plate, causing the print to be softer or whatever. I don't know. I can't really determine what the issue is, because everything that I've done to isolate what the problem could be, trying different tricks that would either exaggerate or solve these particular problems, all the different things that you would go through for any other troubleshooting process for resin printing, hasn't worked. So what do you do? So I've sort of gone, okay, I can't solve this problem. I'm just going to throw a safety net on the whole thing. It works the same way the raft was working for me, except there's far less suction to the FEP sheet when it prints each layer, because it's only this fine grid. It covers the whole build plate. It's a separate model that I created. So every time I load an STL in of a part, I orient that and set up the supports for it. And then I load in the grid and I just orient that flat on the build plate. And that it prints with the build plate and acts like literally a safety net for everything. And that's working really well. So with that being said, let's quickly jump down and have a look at what went wrong with these parts. I've already explained the solution that I've used to prevent this from happening, and it's worked wonderfully for the root section. So we're going to have because it's hilarious. I have to show you how this failed, and it's always the same places in the build plate, and we can look at the other print and I can show you side by side how the same spot, even though these two were printed as a mirrored image, when you look at them side by side as a mirror, you can see that the faults are in the same mirrored position, which is really interesting. So let's have a look at that. All right, so there we go. These are midsection 1. We have the left side and the right side. And you can see here, if we put them in mirror, the areas where it failed is quite, repeatable. So it's something to do with either the build plate itself in that area. There's something about it doesn't want to stick, or like I said, it's the LEDs and the array, or something to do with the FEP sheet. But I've used a microfiber cloth to clean everything. I've tried a combination of everything to get this to work, and it just didn't want to work. So yeah, what you can see here is this one. Or is it this one? This one I printed first. Yeah, I printed this one first. I need to reprint this one because I made an error in the model itself. There's a part of the spar for, you can see this line here. This is one of the connecting spars between the main spar and then the continuation spar that goes to the tip. So in this one, it's not there. So what happened is in the CAD file, that is a separate solid in the part file, and when I export all the solids out to make a single part file so that I can export an STL for that section, that solid is in the lowest area of the list in the solids list, and I didn't notice it, so I only exported all of these parts, and this solid got left out. So after I printed it, and I'm like, hang on a minute, I mean, the hole for the spar is there, the cutouts in the internal structure for the spar is there, but the sleeve for the spar isn't. So I was like, oh crap. So I made the change, and that's why that one's in there now. And then I printed this one, and this is this is weird. These are the bases of the support material. So this entire section here of support material was stuck to the FEP sheet right up until it started printing the skin, and then it picked them up off the FEP sheet. Same here, all of these little square nodules. Yeah, so after this, that was when I was like, you know what, screw it. I need all of these to be stuck to their neighbors. Everything needs to be connected in a grid of some kind. I can't go back to using a raft because there's too much suction force. It's damaging my FEP sheets. So I switched to using the grid. So here it is. This is the grid, and you can see how it catches all of these individual little square nodules and connects them to this big grid sheet that it sticks all to the build surface. And this little raised up area here is for the servo housing. But you can see in here now, I've got too much bed adhesion. This was a pain in the ass to get off. I had to get my metal scraper and scrape my steel plate. So yeah, but this is working so much better now using this grid system. This printed flawlessly, as you can see with this. Some minor issues that are unrelated to the settings that have changed. We had some blowout here. This is to do with the amount of resin that got stuck because I'm printing them so flat to the build plate. It would be like this. So all of this underside here was filled with pooled up resin at the end of the print, so I had to drain that out. But this I can easily fix with some cellophane tape, and you just paint a bit of resin on the cellophane tape in those areas, and you tape over it and hit it with a UV light, peel the tape off, and then you've got a new skin. So that I'm not too worried about. This turned out really great, nice and solid. It is even finished curing. It's still a bit gummy, so I need to put it back in the UV chamber. But there's no warping. This is the largest print that I've printed in area size, and the fact that I printed it almost completely flat to the build plate is just mind-blowing. It's completely counterintuitive to everything that I've been doing to prevent, resin pooling up, because the skin thickness here now is much thicker than 0.5 millimeters. Because whenever it goes to expose the next layer, there's a pool of resin sitting there that the UV light is seeping through the previously cured layer and curing the resin that is pooled above it. So that's why I try and avoid printing these very large surface areas for the very thin skin, because you can see the color discoloration. You get much more thickness to that skin. I can feel it. It feels a lot harder, but it's still super lightweight. So yeah, back into the curing chamber for this. I'm gonna go make some changes to the model and get this video edited and out. So there you go. Like I said, been really busy. I'm going to go now and make some slight adjustments to my print settings. I'm going to bring it back down from 70 seconds for the initial layers because it's now getting really hard to get the rest of the print off. So I'm going to bring that back down to 60 seconds a layer, and we'll see how we go for that. And I'm going to print the next root section. Depending on then how that one goes, I will make adjustments to the other sections that I need to reprint, but I want to hold off from, because I can fly with those. They're good enough to fly with, but I want to hold off on those and get the tail section reprinted so that we have the plane completed and we can see it in its entirety with the wings and everything for the very first time. So yeah, make sure you hit the like button, make sure you subscribe. Not go check out my other channel and subscribe to that. Let me know that you are interested, and it will, I don't know, motivate me to work on the content for that faster, but we'll see. Anyways, as always, I've been Chaos, and until next time, expect the unexpected, and I will see you guys later.
And a special thank you to all my patrons that help support the channel. If you would also like to support the channel, there's a link in the description.